Well, as many of you know, you woke up this morning, November the 7th, 2012, and found that President Obama was reelected to a second term. And I'm sure that as we listen to the analysts speak, we'll find out how in the world that took place. But nevertheless, it did take place. And my job as a Bible prophecy analyst is to determine where we're headed from this day forward. Of course, now the cries of whether or not President Obama is the Antichrist, and I've already received an email from one of my readers that sent me an article indicating that he will indeed seek a third term when that time comes up, which he will instill some of the most reckless socialist reforms the world has ever seen. Well, the only way Obama is going to have a third term is if indeed he is the Antichrist, and if indeed he does declare himself to be God. So let's go ahead and touch on that. Is President Obama the Antichrist? Well, certainly the Lord already knows who his Antichrist will be, and just as he knew that Judas was a son of Satan and would eventually betray him, he knew that from the beginning. Now the question is does Satan know that? Well, he didn't know it in the first coming when Judas was selected as a disciple. He wasn't placed in there by Satan. He was placed in there by God. It wasn't until the last few days of Christ's ministry that Satan finally broke through and possessed Judas to betray Jesus. But that was all in God's plan, and Satan didn't know what he was doing. Thought he was thwarting the plans of God, but he was actually enhancing the plan of God for Jesus to die for the sins of the world. So in fact, he did help bring about salvation for the entire world. In the same vein, I do not believe that Satan knows that his time is short. He won't know that his time is short until midway through the tribulation period, as it says in Revelation 12. I've heard a tremendous amount of Bible prophecy teachers say that Satan knows that his time is short right now. He doesn't. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that Satan knows that his time is short at this time. It doesn't say it until Revelation chapter 12, when after the war in heaven. And that war hasn't taken place. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get a few emails from people who are going to tell me, yes, Satan knows that his time is short. We have to back it up with the Bible. It isn't. You're not going to find it, though. So what is on the agenda for the next 4 years? Well, of course, now we have to look at Obamacare and how that is going to play into Bible prophecy. Of course, many still are, my video on H.R. 32, whether that is the mark of the beast or whatever, it just exploded. And many, I'm sure it'll even explode more now that we're getting closer to the March 23rd, 2013 date. But as before, H.R. 32 never passed, so that's not going to play into it. But for some reason, people still believe that H.R. 32 is still in effect, when in fact it never did pass. I don't understand that, but people can believe what they want. But if indeed you're still hanging on to H.R. 32, you've only got till March the 23rd, 2013 to get your chip, get your implant. You might want to ask yourself, why in the world did we know years in advance, and did we hear all kinds of information both on the internet and on TV for us to change from analog TV to digital TV by the federal government, but yet we haven't heard a thing about taking a chip and having it implanted in us by March 23rd, 2013. There should be a bell going off in your head right now saying, well, you know what? If that was really going to take place, that should have already been something that we should have been informed about. And if you haven't seen that video, you probably need to take a look at it and find out what the Bible has to say about how the chip will be introduced. I mean, there is a specific steps that must take place in order for the chip to be introduced. Or should I say the mark? Because it may not be a chip. It may be something else. It may be as simple as a tattoo. So, a lot of people are up in arms over a chip. Oh, that's the chip. That's the mark of the beast. That's going to be, but technology could change overnight. That could be something that comes up that you can identify. They've got a tattoo out right now that could very well be the mark of the beast. Why in the world would I want a chip implant when I can have a tattoo? It's an electronic tattoo, and I did a report on that as well. That makes more sense, much more sense, than a an implant which requires you to go to a doctor. Why in the world would the Antichrist do that when they can when a tattoo, electronic tattoo, is a whole lot easier and makes a whole lot more sense? So frankly, I don't see the chip implant technology taking off, really, because of the fact that you can do the same thing with a tattoo, the very same thing, and it's a whole lot easier to do. So next on the line, where is our economy heading? In other words, not just the U.S., but the world economy. Well, I think that it's probably going to get a little bit of a bump from the president winning. They always do. But the philosophies that he has is still going to keep the economy in a very stagnant, underperforming mode. I do not see this economy getting back to certainly the level that it was in the past. The principles of God have not changed. The Bible is still true that righteousness exalts a nation and sin is a reproach to any country that may rise and eventually fall. So it's not policies or philosophies that are going to cause America or the world to rise again, but it's going to be righteousness. That is the policy that we need to take as a nation. And certainly, as I read today in a CNN news brief, that Maine has now made same-sex marriage legal. Of course, it's got some legal issues to deal with, but this is where our nation is headed. And if that is the case, then we're headed for what Jesus said himself, that as in the days of Noah will be like the time when he will return. And that was as the days of Noah, where there was a huge homosexuality problem. And I believe his election does nothing more than set the tone for the second coming of Christ to be even closer than what we could have ever imagined. And of course, we look for the rapture of the church to take place 7 years earlier. And so that begs the question, are we on the cusp of the rapture of the church? Well, certainly we are. It could happen at any moment. Now, of course, there are no signs for the rapture of the church because it's imminent. But you can certainly believe that we are looking at all the signs of a very near second coming of Christ, which begs to the question of, will the rapture take place 7 years earlier? And I believe the Bible supports that to be the case. Now, as many of you know, I believe that the United States is Mystery Babylon. And if it's not, there better be a country in the very near future who better rise up and meet the qualifications of Revelation 18, in which that country in which they made the whole world rich. And they were powerful enough economically to make industries weep and cry over the fact that they were lost and that they were destroyed. Now, of course, there are many out there that in the Bible prophecy world that say that the United States is not Mystery Babylon, but there are some who believe it's the Catholic Church, which I do believe also. I believe that's the second part. That's the religious side of Mystery Babylon. So in essence, I do believe in the traditional prophetic interpretation of who Mystery Babylon will be. But I believe that the Mystery Babylon will have an economic side as well, which will be the United States, I believe. Now, moving on to Israel, which will be our main concern as far as what the future has to hold for the Middle East. Israel will be betrayed by the United States. Now, there are a couple of things that I believe. In the near future, Israel may decide to attack Iran and destroy their facilities, because I don't believe that Barak Obama will ever allow Israel to go on their own, to attack with their permission. How soon will it be? Well, we just read an article not too long ago that said that Israel believes now they're probably 8 months to a year away from the bomb, because certain moves that Iran has made, they used up some of their uranium for other purposes, so that set them back a number of months, 8 to 10 months. So it's probably going to be at least to mid-2013 for this language of talking about attacking Iran comes up again in full strength. But when in fact that it does, Israel may very well attack Iran without the permission of the United States. That's not traditionally what I believe, but it could very well happen. And the reason why I believe it could happen is because that could very well put Israel in the doghouse with the United States, and could set up the reason why Russia will be so bold as to come down and attack Israel. along with their Islamic alliance. And here's the scenario that probably will take place with this, and that is that Israel attacks Iran. The United States protests heavily, and this will accelerate the U.S. finally turning their back on Israel and basically giving Russia and the Islamic world a very good reason to attack Israel, knowing that the United States is not in any hurry to get in any wars in the Middle East. They're trying to distance themselves from the Middle East. They are wanting to get into the Asian rim instead of spending more time in a war zone in the Middle East. So I believe there's going to come a time in which this very well may be the last straw, that the U.S. will finally wash their hands of Israel, and when that does take place, I believe that Russia will lead an attack against Israel with complete confidence that the U.S. will not get involved, nor their Western allies. Now, of course, there is the other side of the coin, where the rapture of the church takes place in the very near future. The Antichrist is revealed, and a major Middle East peace accord is put into place. This peace accord, I speculate, will include not only the Palestinian state being created over the next 7 years. Now, when I say over the next 7 years, I mean when the Antichrist finally does bring it about. Iran will agree to nuclear inspections and will agree to step down its nuclear progress. And Syria and the rebel forces that are coming against them will in some way come to an agreement. Whether or not Assad will be removed or not, we'll see. But the Bible is clear that at some point in time there will be a great peace accord with Israel and many, which is found in Daniel 9:27. So we'll see how that shakes down. But one thing I should say before I get off, and that is you can look for the U.S. to become a bastion of depravity once the rapture of the church takes place. I'm sure many believe that the U.S. is on their way to a state of Sodom and Gomorrah at this moment, but that will accelerate 100-fold once the Christians are taken from this world. But if we were ever set, there was ever a time that we're set for the rapture of the church and for the Antichrist to come forth, it's now. So if I were you and I did not know the Lord as Savior, I'd make that decision, because today could be your final day. I truly believe your time is certainly running out. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.